All right, so I have to stay over here today because I want to show you some stuff on my computer. It's more fun to set. So hopefully you guys had a chance to look over at the Google Plus site at things that I'm going to have you guys, look for your problems on your network. Some of these things aren't real common, but I do them anyway just to test your troubleshooting and things that you're looking for. There are some things that are real common that you'll see frequently on networks that people do. But really what I'm looking to see that you guys are able to do, and I understand that you're not experts in this stuff yet. I don't care if you use notes and Google and each other and all sorts of things like when you're doing this for the first time. But just so you know, you're going to walk out of the room. You're going to leave me your browser logged in and open and all your stuff. I'm not going to hack your network it would take me too long, right? To do something like that. So I'm going to go disable things on your computer when it's all logged in. I want your router web page open so I can disable and add things like block MAC addresses and certain things like that so you go through and check them. I'm going to do something to your cabling, right? Lots of stuff to your firewall, services, other applications that you might like to use, things like your browser, disable, like do like a proxy server so your browser quits working. These are things I see people do all the time. They come into a network, they wonder why their browser doesn't work because they set a proxy somewhere else, they forgot about it, whatever. So these are the kind of things I want you guys to be looking for. So do you understand when I say that I want you guys to use a structured approach? What does that mean? So you have some kind of strategy, some kind of plan. So you don't just walk in and just reboot and reload and wire thing, just randomly trying stuff. So like if you took your car to the mechanic and they're charging you $80 an hour, $100 an hour to fix your car, do you want them to start by changing the spark plugs and the spark plug wires and change, or do you want them to actually identify the real problem and fix it? Okay, you want them to use a structured approach, some diagnosis, find the problem, fix the actual problem instead of just randomly trying stuff. Most of you that I work with, you guys can fix stuff, but it's more unstructured and kind of random, or you use your, I saw that before, so you kind of use your prior knowledge or your experience, but a lot of times you guys do things the hard way. Have you noticed that? Like it takes you a lot longer to fix the problem than it should. Eventually you usually can get it because you got some experience. And I see a lot of resetting and reinstalling to fix things. Right? Do you guys agree with that? When Windows does reinstall it, well, you fixed it. You didn't really fix it. You got it to work, right? You did a workaround. So we have to start thinking differently than that when you start becoming a professional IT worker, because you don't really want, if it's a server or a high value asset, you can't just reinstall the server because something didn't work, right? And that's a big deal to do something like that, and companies just aren't going to do that. When you take your laptop to Best Buy because it has a virus, what do? Everybody ever? You probably haven't done that. Have you ever heard of people taking their laptop to Best Buy because it had a virus? What do they do, Jordy? You probably know. They just reload it, right? Charge you $115 or whatever. So they just have a little spot set up in their little back room. They just plug it into the network and just push a new image to it. And oh, by the way, you wanted applications put back on it? And then they charge you more for putting Office on and whatever application you might want it. But they're not really fixing the virus, right? I mean, they sort of are because they're reinstalling it, but they're not really fixing the problem. They're just basically starting over. So I want you guys to learn how to do things that, are a little more sophisticated than that. So structured approach. So when I talk about a structured approach, where do you start? Customer identifies computer doesn't go to the internet, whatever. And Mr. Lake, the network's down, or my computer's broken, right? What do you do? So you would use a tool like ping, and ping what?
The server.
What server?
Like if you can't connect to Google, you're just going to Google.com.
Yep. So what Nick's saying is he's going to ping Google, right? And that's going to test a lot of things, isn't it? So if you use the word Google, that tests something different than ping an IP address, right? So I like your approach. Actually, what you're doing when you're pinging, you're actually starting down here, right? Like you're starting kind of in the middle of the OSI model. Like you're not checking all the cabling first. Does that make sense to you? Like a lot of students, they have the OSI model and it doesn't go to Google. So what they do is they check every cable first, because that's step one, right? Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
Like, wouldn't that be a lot of work to check every cable between here and Google?
Yes.
So that's probably not real practical, is it? Now you might have a bad cable, and bad cables are common. It's common to have an issue at layer 1, but you're not always, I wouldn't check every cable first. I'm too lazy for that. I would ping something first because I can just ping and it's going to tell me a lot, right? So if you ping all the way out to the outside, like google.com, and it works, right? Then you have a problem at the application that you're trying to use, like the email or the browser or firewall or something like that, because if you ping Google and it comes back, layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3 are working, right? You have connectivity to it. Now, if it doesn't come back, if it says something like a DNS error, like it can't find Google, what does that mean? Because when you ping Google, that requires DNS. It's got to resolve Google. I want you guys to know that. That's a good thing to do. I would probably do the same thing. Ping google.com. What I'm doing is I'm pinging something outside my network, right? Like on the internet. Like this is the gold, right? If I can ping Google and go back, I don't have a network problem, right? Like the way I would define it.
Would you kind of say that doing layer 3 can sometimes be used before layer 1 and 2 because then it saves you time?
Yep, it saves you time if you start in the middle, right? So if you start at the bottom and work your way up, you might do things you don't need to do. Or if you start in the middle, then you can either go down to layer 2 and layer 1, or you can go up. Like right away, if you get a failure at layer right here, then it might be your network card, it might be cable, right? Like if it fails right off the get-go, then probably just start lower. But it's a very much a time-saving thing. But do you see how when I ping Google, see how it produced a number for me here? What's the service? Hi, Michael. What's the service that goes that makes Google turn into an IP address? It's a DNS, right? There's a service called a DNS server that has a big table, right? It's all like a big phone book. When I ping Google, it's got to go look up Google and find its IP address. If that is broken, for 99% of the people in the world, the internet is down, right? Because you don't memorize IP addresses, all right? So remember when we talked about that NSLOOKUP command? It will tell you that your name server. We used that yesterday. Had some students having trouble in third session. They typed in the wrong IP address for their name server, just a typo, and their internet was down, or so they said, right? So the first thing we did is ping Google. It failed, and I said, "Well, do NSLOOKUP," and I said, "Well, that's not the right DNS server." So like before you start the test, should you know what your DNS server is?
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys know what your DNS server is, or should be?
172.26.11.
Yeah, that's the Lake DNS server, right?
And then there's the second one at .12.
Yep. So the local DNS. So my network is 172.26.10. Now, would I expect you guys to memorize this stuff? I wouldn't really expect you to memorize that. Those are the Lake ones. Now you have Google ones too, like 8.8.8. Do you guys know about these ones?
I learned 8.8. I thought there was 8.8.
I'm gonna just call them internet. Yeah, there's like 8.8.4.4.
Yeah.
You can look them up, right? Just Google DNS servers, and you'll get a whole list of them. I'll just call them internet DNS servers. You also have ISP DNS servers. That's like AT&T or Google. A lot of people have DNS servers because you need to have them, and it's hierarchical. So best to look it up here local. Like if my server knows Google, that's going to be faster than going out and asking, Verizon or Sprint or whoever our ISP is, because it's closer, right? It doesn't have to go, 30 miles and come back. So these are good things to know, right? And it's very common for people to make a typo, right? So it used to be common for Google's DNS servers to be kind of flaky. Not Google, but Comcast, like when they first became an ISP. Like you guys know but Comcast. Comcast was not always an internet service provider, right? Like I'm old enough to know in Comcast, all they did was TV. Isn't that scary? So then Comcast bought out a company that was an ISP and kind of integrated it into their network. And they had problems in the early days with their DNS servers. So I knew this stuff, so what I did is I just typed in these into my computer, so that if Comcast DNS server was down, it just went out to the internet and looked it up for me. So I use that as a secondary just to back it up. Now think about from a security standpoint, do you need to be careful what you supply as your DNS server?
Oh,
right? Like, so if I'm going to Lake Michigan Credit Union, do I want to go to the real Lake Michigan Credit Union? So if somebody had a fake DNS server, could they redirect me to someplace I didn't want to go? Right, so like this is a pretty common way to hack people's computers, to change their DNS to an unfriendly DNS, a not secure DNS, and then you can route them wherever you want. It's like giving somebody bad directions on the internet. You know, that's a common thing to see happen for like identity and fraud and stuff on the network. So, will I change your IP address? Will I change your DNS server to mess with you on purpose? I will do that. So, am I telling you a test answer right now? So, what I will do on one of your computers, almost guaranteed, right? I'm not going to say guaranteed because I do something different on all of them. I will go in here into your adapter. I got to be careful doing it to mine, because what I'll do after a demo, I'll mess my computer all up and it'll take me a half hour to fix it, because I'll forget what I did. I'll go into the properties and I'll just click on that right there. This right here is my computer's using DHCP. I'm getting all my IP configuration from a server. What I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll change this to something goofy. Like usually I'll do like 1.1.1.1, because it will stick out like a sore thumb, right? Because if you do NS lookup and it's 1.1.1.1, you should just laugh, right? That's like me playing a little joke on you. This should be easy for you to find it. Does that make sense to you? Like, I'm not looking to make this thing the most impossible thing you've ever done in your entire life. I just want to see that you guys are using a process, right? And if you don't find that and all you do is uninstall the network card and reinstall it and it magically works, well, that's good that you got it working, but I'm really looking for you to identify the problem. So it's like the new math, right? I don't want you just to make it work. I want to see that you're using a process so that you can identify that it didn't work. So is it possible to fix this by uninstalling the network card and reinstalling the network card? That will just bring all the default settings back, and that's a legitimate thing to do after you try some. Like if I can't figure it out by looking at some things, a lot of times I'll do that. I'll do that myself, because I don't want to spend 2 hours finding the problem. If I can just uninstall and reinstall the network card, it takes about 2 minutes. That's a wise use of my time, isn't it? I wouldn't just jump into that as the first solution, though. I would work a little harder, because when you do that, a lot of times you lose some of your settings, like some of your Wi-Fi stuff. Well, you have to type all that stuff back in. A lot of times it'll keep it. Just depends on your operating system. But if I go up here to configure and go up here to driver, that's where you uninstall and reinstall a network card. So I'm showing you that because this is a legitimate thing to do, right? But it's not the first thing I want you to do. So if you tell me that you solved it by uninstalling the network card, and I write down what I do because I can't keep track, right? So on your network, on network 0, on PC 1, if I change the DNS, I got to write this stuff down because I'll forget. So I'll write down, change DNS on PC 1. And you guys better tell me DNS was messed up on PC 1. We fixed it, now it works. If you just got it to work but can't tell me why, that's good that you got it to work, but you're not going to get an A. So are people clear on that? So network settings, look them over. If you think there's a problem here, right, and you're going to use tools like ping and NS lookup, go into your network properties, just look it over. Look at your TCP/IP, go to your properties and just look to see that this is set up right. I do that all the time, right? Now what about all these things in here? Is any of this stuff important? Where we got client for Microsoft, file and print, quality of service packet scheduler. Do you think any of these things are important?
IPv6.
What?
IPv6.
It just depends, right? Like, I actually don't need IPv6 on my computer. I can actually take that off. But the reason why we don't need that is this school runs IP4 still, and they will probably for a long time yet. We're a little behind the times in the United States, right? So what they do is they run both IP4 and IP6 at the same time. And it's supposed to be a kind of a bridge. Like eventually we're supposed to stop running IP4, but I bet by about the time you guys are my age, we'll probably still be running IP4. Because are we still on the metric system or the English system? For some reason, America is weird, aren't we? Our country's kind of weird. You ever notice that? Like, should we be on the metric system by now? Like, you guys finally, a whole bunch of people got to die off before we make changes. I learned that. right? Like you guys would probably be okay with the metric system, wouldn't you?
No.
No, you would. Like I'd be okay with it. I'd be a little shaky. I could get, but like my parents, no way, right? There's no way. Your mom and dad are probably about my age, or whatever. They would probably resist it, but they could probably adjust. You guys should probably be okay with it. We were supposed to switch to the metric system in like 1978 or something like that.
Actually, earlier.
Earlier than that, yeah. So
They tried it for like a couple months and then they switched back because no one was able
I was a little kid when it was supposed to happen. I remember being like 5th or 6th grade. I remember them taking signs and putting stickers over the speed limits to say the kilometers per hour. They actually took big stickers and put them over the speed limit signs, and they changed them all back because people didn't like it. The same things happen with IP4, IP6. It just take forever for them to get around to changing it. What would happen if I unchecked this and unchecked this? And might I do that to you? Would this computer go to the internet right now? No, as I took the IP4 protocol out, right? IP4, that's TCP/IP. That's what gives you access to the internet. So, I mean, this is like one of my favorite things to do too. I'm telling you what I'm going to do, right? Like in your network, one of these things is going to happen, if not multiple things. I'm going to disable things that are in this screen right here. If you tell me, hey, all you did, Mr. Lake, is you unchecked IP4 and it didn't work, and all I did was checked it back on, then I would be happy. That would be a 100% answer. If you couldn't figure it out and you went up to configure, I'm going to say yes to that. If you went up here to configure and just reloaded the driver, uninstalled and reinstalled it, that's good because you fixed it, but you're not going to get an A. Right? I'm going to say I want you guys to identify what the problem is. There's all sorts of settings that I don't usually mess with right here. You ever see people messing with these? There's all sorts of settings under the property. These are all wireless settings. There's things you can do to make your network kind of optimized for whatever wireless network you're on. But you got to be really careful monkeying with these, don't you? You ever see people like optimize their computer and then break it because they're trying to make it go faster? Like I see it all the time. People don't usually own up to it. But
depends on how they optimize.
Right, they'll read something on the internet, right? Here, make your computer faster, disable all these services, and then they'll disable something they need, and they'll wonder why it doesn't work, right? I see that all the time, but they'll never tell you, right?
Yeah.
And there are things like overclocking, right?
And this is different than what I'm talking about here, but yeah, so when you talk about the OSI model,
Same thing, right? But it's like
it's similar. I'm talking about the OSI, which is a networking model, right? It's about network connectivity. You still have all sorts of physical problems on the PC. So if you overclocked it and caused your processor to heat up and your computer to restart all the time, that's the kind of stuff that happens for overclocking. The OSI model is not going to help you find that
Well,
one.
it pulls so much power, or you pull so much more power than
Yep.
the power clock.
Right. That's the kind of stuff that happens. So, like, you got to remember, I mean, there's the physical PC problems you might be having. I'm not going to cause those problems on this test, right? I'm not going to mess up I'm not going to take your RAM out and, give you a bad processor and stuff like that. You have to identify that it's a networking problem versus a physical PC problem, too. That's out there. That's why this stuff's hard to do. Usually, today, it's not a PC problem. Have you guys noticed that? I mean, you have, for every network connectivity, I should say, for every PC problem I probably see 100 network connectivity problems. I mean, there's no doubt that PCs have problems from time to time, but almost always it's something on the network, a bad cable, a setting, something with a router, switch, whatever. Yes?
I know like most hardware that can actually get overclocked has like an application that
Yep.
for you.
And then what they do is they just sell you a processor that was built for it in the first place and just tell you it was overclocking. That's my experience with that. Like they undersell it a little bit so you can just run it back to where it was initially designed to be run. But overclocking's got a neat history. I don't want to talk about that right now. All right, you guys ready to move on from the network card stuff? So those are the things I would like you guys to look for in the network card. I will do stuff. What about, like this is a real easy one. What if I just right-clicked it and disabled it? You ever see that one? Anybody ever dealt with a disabled network card and like you had to fix it for somebody else? Yeah, you know what used to be, they used to have, and they do a soft key now, but computers used to have like this little switch on the side that would turn their wireless on and off because wireless chews battery up. So batteries still are a problem, but Does anybody have like a hard switch on their laptop for their wireless? You have one still? Like, so people that don't know what they're doing, right? They'll bump it, putting it in their bag. Oh my gosh, my internet, it doesn't work. And it's the button, right? Like, oh, I fixed that one a lot. It hasn't been so much lately because a lot of them don't have it anymore, and people are starting to look for that.
A light switch that's like hooked up all the way to the router.
Yep.
Turn off, turn on.
Yep.
Boom.
You'll see, like this computer has a wireless. It's a soft key. Right? They call it airplane mode because it's like a computer. It's like a they're trying to make it like a phone, right? Like airplane mode. If I turn that on, that would disable. That would turn all my wireless stuff off too. Those computers don't have that, so I won't do that. All right, let's move on from here. All right, so that right there would go up into the application layer, wouldn't it? So like down here, if we're taking notes, all the network interface settings, right? So you should check your network connections. That's what I'm talking about there. All right, what about firewalls?
Oh yeah.
So a lot of people know how to get here and do like the real basics, but I usually go to the advanced settings. I want you guys to know a little bit more. Have you guys seen the advanced one before?
It's fun too.
Yep. So you have inbound and you have outbound. So if I want to stop something from leaving your computer, I would go to outbound. Is it possible for me to go into this outbound and block Chrome, for example?
Yeah.
Candy Crush, where'd that come from?
It comes default.
They download that automatically. I found that out when I downloaded it.
Man, I hate that.
If you have Windows 10, it comes pre-installed.
So like all you gotta do is go through here and stop something, make a rule to stop it. So do you see, what's Chrome under? Well, there's Microsoft Edge, for example, right? There's the browser. So if I wanted to disable Microsoft Edge, I just disable it. Anybody see Chrome? Where'd Chrome go? Oh, I looked up there.
Try the inbound.
Try my name.
Look at the inbound row.
It is done by name. Well, I should have outbound too, though.
Oh, the other.
At any rate, if I was to disable Google Chrome, what would happen to Chrome when you tried to go to the internet? You might know what would happen if I disabled it. It just would. Now, could you ping Google though? You could ping it, right? So it's pointing you to an application error. So, so I would like you to look. I would like you guys to look for your inbound and outbound rules, and you have to understand too with the Microsoft how they set this up is you basically have 3 different profiles for your firewall. You have your public, you have your private, and you have a business one or this domain one. So you have to know that there's 3 different rules. So you can let Google go out on your business and your public, but not your private. It's a little confusing, isn't it? You guys think that it's confusing that there's 3 different profiles that you have to troubleshoot? I might be the only one. Yes. Do you think that's confusing or not? So, I would like you guys to look for. I would like you guys to be able to look at the advanced firewall, and I would like you guys to be able to troubleshoot it. Now, what people do on the firewall to fix it is they set little restore defaults there. Is that a legitimate thing to do on your firewall?
Yes.
So we got some saying yes, we have some saying no. I would say it depends, right? So if you're working at a business that somehow customizes these for whatever reason and you just reset it, that's probably not good. If it's a home user, I would reset that thing all day long. Because is there a lot of settings in here to look at? Like there's a lot going on, isn't there? Like you could spend a half hour, 45 minutes looking over all these to figure out what happened. What about ping? Can I disable ping in the firewall?
Yes. You can disable ICMP.
Yeah, so it's called ICMP. You have to know that, don't you?
Huh?
Like it's not called ping, is it? It's weird, isn't it? And it's under file and print for some reason. So See these file and printer sharing ones? I like to disable ping too. I like to take that away from you. There it is right there. So you have IP4 pings, you have IP6 pings, and you have 3 different domain. You have the 3 different profiles. You have your public, your domain, and your private, whatever it is. So there's a whole bunch of these. Mine are all turned on, except for this inbound and inbound. So you see why are the inbound ones turned off for ping? I don't want people pinging my computer, right? I want to be able to ping you, but I don't want you to be able to ping me. That's a default setting. That's a good setting. That's what you generally want. That's what screwed you guys up a lot of times. You guys are testing your BZ flag networks, right? You're trying to ping servers down rows, and they won't respond to pings unless you enable it. So you can pretty much bet that I will do some kind of goofy thing to your firewall, right, to stop something you want, like Chrome from working, or a ping, something like that. And the last thing from so I'm going to firewall in here. This really what this blocks is ports. You can block applications and things like that, but really what it's looking for is blocking ports that's trying to use. Could I set up a rule in the firewall to block port 80? What do you guys think? Do you know what port 80 does? Yep. So back in that firewall, I could actually make a rule, and I do this sometimes too. And a lot of times I'll name it like something ridiculous, like Lake's hack rule, so you can find it real easy. You can go in here and make a new rule. Oh, where's it at? Oh, over there. Yep. Have you guys ever messed with this before? So I can make a rule for a port, and I'm not going to follow through with this, and I can go through here real quick, TCP from everywhere. Oh, I got to do all, yep. Otherwise it's going to specify it. I would block the connection. Oh, I should go back there and do port 80. I could block, originally when I did it, it was going to block every port. That would be kind of funny. So I do TCP, block port 80. Guess what's going to work for you as far as the internet is concerned? Everything will work. Email will work. Ping will work. But any HTTP will not work. HTTPS would work. So when you try to go to a website, if it's using port 80, which most of them use, it will block it. If I did this rule, and then I would name the rule something like Lake's hack rule. So when you're looking through there, if you see some ridiculously named rule, you should be able to spot that, right? And then the last thing, service-wise, that messes people up, or the last thing, application-wise, are services. Most people don't know about services when they come into my class. Did you guys have a chance to look these over a little bit? So, like, that one right there, do you think that one there is kind of an important one? DHCP client? Go like this if you think DHCP client is an important one. Do you think Mr. Lake would do something like nasty, like go turn that off on you? Right, and what would happen? The internet would stop. Why would it stop? What IP address would you have if I turned off your DHCP client?
You would have
None, right? It would be like 0.0.0.0. And you'd have no configuration. Yep. So when you did IP config, it would look weird, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's what I want you guys to do too. So that's a way to test that. After I ping something, if it didn't come back, by the way, Control-C gets you out of that screen. I don't know if you guys know that. If I did IP config with DHCP turned off, this stuff would all be blank. It would probably be 0.0.0.0. Might be 169, but I think it would be all zeros. What about, so DNS is kind of a big one. What about the DNS client? You want that one? Yeah, if you want to be able to resolve names, that's a nice one. What else is in here that's fun to mess with? What about, oh, I like doing this one. What if I disable your network connections? That's one of my favorites too. You guys are dying on me. Are people writing this stuff down in their notes though? I'm telling you what I'm going to do.
I would, but also.
So in services, if I disable network, if I stop it or disable it, and then I go to my network connections, right? I should get a little error popping up here. I just stopped it. I didn't disable it. That's why that didn't work right.
He's running a manual.
It's manual, but it's running. I don't know. Why didn't I stop it? Didn't I tell it to stop? I'll figure out, when I hack your network, I'll figure out how to make it stop. If I stop it, it will get the famous unspecified error occurred or something crazy like that. So all you got to do to fix these things, by the way, if you think it's a service, is go up to the status, right? And you see if you click it, you can sort them by services that are disabled or not running. See how they're all running? So all these ones that aren't running, just scan them and look and look for ones that might be a problem for you. Or under startup type, look for disabled ones. It's okay for some of them to be disabled. You don't always want them all to be running. All right, and if you don't know which one should be running and which one shouldn't be running, I always compare it to one that's working. Right? Like compare it, bring your laptop and just compare it, make sure that it's running the same services. That's an easy way to check it out. You can also Google it, right? Like what services should be running by default. A bad thing to do is just run down the list and just start them all. I see people do that. That's a really bad thing to do. You don't want to fix it by starting every service. So application-wise, those are some things that I'll do to it. What about cabling? What about layer 1? You guys should be really familiar with layer 1 because you did all the cabling. What will I do that's nasty at layer 1? What?
Cut the wires and plug them.
Cut them, that's a particularly nasty one, right? Because I wreck it if I do that.
Put a back cable.
Yep. Would I be so nasty as to cut one of your precious cables?
Yeah.
Would I do that?
I
Maybe it's really small one.
I might do that. Right? And I might do an important one, right? Like the one that goes from the router to the lake nut. Because that'll affect everybody, won't it? Yep. Now, would I just chop the head right off it and make it real obvious? I wouldn't do that, right? I'd just go in there and snip like the orange-white wire. Or I might pull the orange-white wire out of your punch-down block, right? Or your drop. Would I do something nasty like that?
Yep.
Right? And is that one easy to see? It's not easy because you'll still get a blinky light. You know, at layer 2, you have your two lights. One's connectivity and one's activity. Those lights will still be on if one of the wires is down. You know, so an indication you have a problem at layer 1 is no connectivity lights on your network card. You know, but it's not all that sophisticated. You can unplug 1 or 2 wires and it will go. So you need to check your drop. You need to check your patch cables. You have 2 of them, right? You need to check your, I would call it like your backbone cable. That's the one that goes to lake net drop. That's the kind of stuff that happens with that. Now, what about layer 2? What would I do there? This is like MAC addresses. Things like VLANs, which we're not learning in this class, but the VLAN isolates your network at layer 2, so the stuff can't, so that it isolates your network traffic at layer 2, so that the networks stay separate at layer 2. Anybody ever block things at layer 2 on their networks at home? Well, you can't do this, right? You guys, did you guys take the oath for me in this class? Like, did you guys take the oath? Like things that you guys did, right? Things I show you or you learn in this class you can't do to wreck, pestilence, cause death, destruction, or various bad things. So, is it possible for me to block your computer at the router?
Oh yeah.
Right? Do you know how to do that? Do you guys know how to do that?
You can set up some firewall stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's a MAC filter is what it's called. So I can go into MAC filter and completely block an IP address. And if your computer's connected to the network, it's real easy. It shows all your computers and their computer name.
Your router should give you a list
Yep.
there, too.
Gives you a list. All you gotta do is go in there and just block it. So it'll just click and you're done. So if you see your neighbor on your network because they hacked your Wi-Fi password, you should change your Wi-Fi password, but you could block them too. Like you should probably be aware of what's on your network, don't you think? So you should know about those settings. Do you guys need to practice that one today? Because I'll show you where it is. I don't have a router set up here, so I can't show it to you. But I would check on your router. I would check for a MAC filter. So basically a block. And on your router, other goofy things I do sometimes on your router. Is it possible for me to block like a whole domain on your router? What do you guys think? Does the router provide that functionality? Or might I do something nasty like that? So that's a layer 7. It's really not a layer 3 things. So what about layer 3? This is sort of starts in the middle, but this really is routing and IP address, the routing of the packets. I can't really mess with routers too much in here because I'm not in charge of them. Like yours just uses a default routing protocol. Those are all pre-configured. Those home-based routers, they don't really have routing protocols that we can change. So I won't really do much with layer 3 and layer 5 and 6, and I can't really do much with those either. Things like encryption and compression and sessions, I won't really mess with that. So you know it works, right? You guys want to know how you know it works? So can go to internet, right? What does that mean? Browser and ping. Yeah, if you fire up a browser and it works, you're pretty good, right? That's kind of what we're looking for. What about, I don't think you guys are going to be able to do it. What about doing this / like IT server 01? Should you be able to do that? Or go to a computer on your network? Do you know what provides that service? This chapter, I think you're at, you guys doing chapter 5 right now? Is that what we talked about? You're at 6. Chapter 6 has you guys doing a file sharing lab. Have you done that yet? So what makes it available for you to do a file share? That's not an internet protocol there, by the way.
I think it's something like DHCP.
You need DHCP. It's this guy right here. So if I uncheck client for Microsoft Networks, what would happen to a local file share? Microsoft file share anyway. It wouldn't work, right? Will I do that to you? It's a possibility. I'm not going to do all these things to everybody because that'd just be too much, right? So how do you work? So one thing is it goes to the internet, and you can ping, and you can also either browse. I don't really like browsing because it takes too long, but you can browse local network or whack. That's the UNC path. So you got to use the UNC path. So when you get it all fixed up, the gold standard for having it done is every computer in your network. That's what I'll ask you guys to do. Every computer in your network can ping google.com -t. Just let it run forever, right? This is how you know you're done. And you have to have a browser open, right? And I'll just walk up and hit refresh on it. You have to be able to ping google.com -t to run it with every computer. You have to have a browser open. I'll say both IE and Chrome. And then you should be able to have a local file open up on your server because you guys did the file sharing lab. You might not have done that yet, but do you know how to share files on a local computer and get to it on your network? Go like this if the answer is yes. So we have one person still awake. When are you guys wanting to start this one? Is anybody ready to start today?
Yeah.
So, you guys are ready over there, row 0? Ooh, that was